My name is Lila Cross. I'm 28 years old. For most of my life, my parents treated me like a quiet embarrassment, while my older sister Vivian collected elite degrees, glittering praise, and the unspoken promise of everything. They mocked my dyslexia at the dinner table, shut me out of every important conversation, and paid me a fraction of what they paid her. But on Vivian's graduation night at the Plaza Hotel, in front of nearly 400 guests, a stranger handed me an envelope that would tear apart every careful lie the Cross family had ever told about me. What they never realized was that Grandma Margaret had been watching the whole time. She saw everything, and she left me the one thing powerful enough to turn the entire Cross empire upside down. The Crosses were old Manhattan money, the kind of family whose name sat on hospital wings, museum donor walls, and the glossy covers of real estate magazines. My father, Harrison Cross, ran Cross Realty Group, a commercial real estate company my grandmother Margaret had built from a single small office in Brooklyn in 1964. By 2024, the company was worth close to $90 million. I was born with dyslexia, diagnosed when I was 7. Letters on a page never stayed still for me. Simple sentences became living puzzles that took 3 times longer than they should have. My parents' answer was not help. It was quiet, polished shame. When I was 12, they poured money into Vivian, violin lessons at Juilliard, private French tutors, SAT coaching at $400 an hour. When I asked for reading support, my mother Celeste simply sighed and said, "We've already spent so much on specialists, Lila. At some point, we have to accept that some children just aren't academic." I was 12. I believed her, so I taught myself. Audiobooks became my textbooks. I built systems of color-coded diagrams, flowcharts, and visual maps that let me understand information in ways traditional reading never could. And every Sunday, I rode the train to Grandma Margaret's Upper West Side apartment, where she sat with me for hours and explained the world through stories instead of dense pages. "You read slower than most people," she told me once, her weathered hand covering mine. "But you see the shape of things others miss. That's not a weakness, sweetheart. That's a different kind of sight." I didn't fully understand her then. I would later. Christmas 2018. 20 relatives gathered around the long mahogany table in my parents' Upper East Side townhouse. Crystal chandeliers, catered food, the annual performance of Cross family perfection. My father, Harrison, stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, and announced that Vivian had been accepted to Harvard Law on a full scholarship. Applause erupted. Vivian blushed on cue, the practiced modesty of someone who had always been the star. "My eldest daughter will be the first Cross to attend Harvard in 3 generations, Harrison said, beaming. "She's going to take this family and this company to extraordinary heights." Then his eyes drifted down the table to me. The warmth vanished like a light switching off. "And Leela, well, Leela is also here." A few soft, uncomfortable laughs rippled around the table. Vivian laughed with them. I stared at my plate until the roasted lamb blurred. Under the table, thin fingers found mine and squeezed. Grandma Margaret's eyes were sharp with something close to fury directed at her own son. She said nothing that night. 3 months later, she called me to her apartment and said she needed to show me something important. I had no idea that one moment of casual cruelty had started a clock that would take 5 years to finish ticking. After I graduated from a state university in 2022, never an Ivy, never even close, I applied for a job at Cross Realty Group. I wanted to prove I could contribute, that the family business could be my path too. My father agreed to hire me as an administrative assistant at $42,000 a year. That same month, Vivian joined as chief legal counsel at $280,000 plus bonuses. My days became a blur of photocopying contracts I was never allowed to read, booking conference rooms for meetings I was never invited to, and fetching coffee for executives who never learned my name. I sat in a cubicle near the copy room and watched. I listened. When executives discussed deals in the hallway, I sketched diagrams of the relationships between parties, the flow of money, the potential conflicts. The same skill I had built to survive dyslexia had become something sharper, something almost architectural. Grandma Margaret had taught me that. On those Sunday afternoons, she would spread old company contracts across her table and show me how to read them, not word by word, but as living systems. "Your father reads contracts like a lawyer looking for an edge," she said in 2019, just before her health began to fail. "You read them like an architect. You see how every piece holds the others up." That same day, she pressed a small mahogany box into my hands. Brass hinges, heavy for its size. "Keep this safe," she said. "Don't open it yet. When you need it, you'll know." 18 months later, she was gone. Pancreatic cancer. I held her hand in the hospice room. I was the only family member there. The box stayed closed in my closet, its strange weight a quiet presence I tried not to think about. April 2024. The email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Subject line, "Position restructuring, confidential." My role was being eliminated effective July 1st. HR would contact me regarding severance. I read the message 3 times. The letters swam, rearranged themselves, then settled back into the same devastating shape. They were firing me. That evening, I stayed late, organizing files no one would ever look at. Through the thin wall separating my cubicle from my father's corner office, I heard voices, Harrison and Celeste. "We can't have her here when Vivian takes over," my father was saying. "It looks bad. The CEO's sister working as a secretary. People will ask questions." "What kind of questions?" "Why she's not in leadership, why we haven't promoted her, why she is the way she is." My mother's reply came soft, almost gentle. "We've done everything we could for her, Harrison. Some children just don't have what it takes." "Exactly, so she needs to go. We'll give her a generous severance. She can find something else, something more suited to her abilities." I pressed my palm against the wall. $42,000 a year, a shared studio in Queens that cost $1,800 a month, no savings, no safety net. If I lost this job, I would be homeless within 2 months. But the real weight was deeper. If I accepted their version of me, I would spend the rest of my life as the family failure, not because I had failed, but because I had never been allowed to try. May 15th, 2024, the Plaza Hotel, Grand Ballroom. Nearly 400 guests filled the gilded room. Business partners, investors, lawyers from white shoe firms, extended family members I barely recognized. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across silk tablecloths. A 12-piece orchestra played Gershwin in the corner. This was Harrison Cross's kingdom, his stage, the place where he performed his role as patriarch and mogul. I stood in the entrance, tugging at the hem of my dress, black, simple, $79 from Zara, the most I could afford. Everyone else glittered in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. My mother intercepted me before I could find a seat. Celeste's gaze traveled from my drugstore makeup to my scuffed heels, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You couldn't find anything nicer?" "This is what I have." "Well," she adjusted her Cartier bracelet. "You'll be at table 27, near the service entrance. Try not to draw your attention to yourself. And Leela," she leaned closer, Chanel number 5 overwhelming, "tonight is Vivian's night. Whatever resentment you think you're entitled to, keep it to yourself. Don't embarrass us." She walked away before I could answer. Table 27 was at the back of the ballroom, partially hidden behind a pillar. My table mates were distant cousins I had met maybe twice. From my seat, I could see the main stage, the massive portrait of Vivian in her Harvard regalia, the banner reading, "Congratulations, Vivian Cross, Harvard Law Class 2024. and near the entrance, standing alone by the doors, a silver-haired man in a gray suit. He wasn't mingling, he wasn't eating, just watching. His eyes found mine across the crowded room. Something cold prickled down my spine. At 8:30, the orchestra stopped. The lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage where my father stood, champagne flute raised. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate an extraordinary young woman. The applause began before he finished the sentence. Vivian graduated top 5% of her Harvard Law class. She completed a clerkship with Justice Reynolds, and last month she made partner track at Sullivan and Cromwell in record time. His voice swelled with pride. But tonight, I'm not just celebrating her achievements, I'm announcing her future. Effective immediately, Vivian Cross will inherit my entire estate upon my passing. This includes our family residence at 740 Park Avenue, currently valued at $13 million, and, most importantly, he paused for effect, the position of CEO of Cross Realty Group when I retire. The room erupted, standing ovation, camera flashes. Vivian dabbed at her eyes with performative grace. 400 people celebrating, and not one of them glanced at table 27. The cousin beside me, a woman I had met at a funeral 8 years ago, leaned over. "Leela, right? So what does that mean for you?" I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I say? That I had just been formally erased from my own family? That the termination letter in my inbox was only the beginning? That every fear I had ever carried about being worthless had just been confirmed in front of everyone who mattered? Through the crowd, the silver-haired man at the door began to walk toward me, slowly, deliberately, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. He stopped at my table. Up close, I could see he was older than I had thought. Early 60s, deep-set eyes, the careful posture of someone who had spent his life in courtrooms. "Miss Cross?" I straightened. "That's me. Can I help you?" "My name is David Harrington." He pulled a business card from his breast pocket, cream-colored, embossed. "Harrington and Associates, attorneys at law." "Your grandmother's lawyer." The words hit like a punch. "Your grandmother?" "Margaret passed away 3 years ago." "I'm aware." He didn't sit, didn't soften. "She left something for you with very specific instructions about when to deliver it." From inside his jacket, he produced a cream envelope, heavy stock, sealed with red wax bearing a notary stamp. "What is this?" "Her will. The real one, the one your father doesn't know exists." I stared at the envelope. The notary seal read, "Harrington and Associates, September 12, 2019, 5 months after that Sunday afternoon in her apartment, 5 months after she had handed me the wooden box." "I don't understand." "Your grandmother gave me explicit instructions. I was to deliver this document on the day your father publicly disinherited you." He glanced toward the stage where Harrison and Vivian were still basking in applause. "I believe that just occurred." My hands trembled as I took the envelope. "Mr. Harrington, what's in here?" For the first time, something almost like warmth flickered in his eyes. "Mrs. Margaret told me to tell you. Give this to Lila on the day Harrison shows her exactly who he is. By then, she'll be ready." He straightened his tie. "I'll be available when you have questions. You have my card." Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I couldn't breathe in that ballroom. I pushed through the service entrance and found an empty hallway near the kitchen. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the sounds of celebration muffled to a distant hum. My fingers shook as I broke the wax seal. Inside were 3 pages of dense legal text, a notarized signature, a date, September 12, 2019. I read slowly, carefully. The letters swam, but I forced them into focus. "I, Margaret Eleanor Cross, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous testamentary documents and declare this to be my last will and testament. My eyes caught on a paragraph near the middle. To my granddaughter, Lila Ann Cross, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Cross Realty Group, LLC, currently valued at approximately $47 million, along with all voting rights associated therewith. I read it again and again, 51%, controlling interest. The will continued. This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son Harrison's treatment of Lila. She has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not due to lack of ability, but due to lack of support. Lila is not slow. Lila was abandoned, and I will not allow her father's prejudice to continue after my death. A sob caught in my throat. Grandma had seen. She had seen everything. Then the condition. To activate this bequest, Lila must formally request an emergency board meeting within 72 hours of receiving this document. Failure to act within this window will render this will null and void, and all assets shall transfer per my 2015 testament. 72 hours. The deadline would fall at 8:30 p.m. on May 18th. I leaned against the cold wall, the document clutched to my chest. My grandmother had given me a weapon. Now I had to decide if I was brave enough to use it. David Harrington was waiting by the coat check when I emerged. You read it? The 72-hour clause. My voice cracked. Why would she put that in? Your grandmother knew you, Miss Cross. He handed me a second card, this one with a personal cell number handwritten on the back. She knew that if she gave you unlimited time, you might convince yourself not to act. The deadline isn't a punishment, it's permission. Permission to stop waiting for your family to change their minds about you, to take what's rightfully yours. He checked his watch. 3 days. If you want to proceed, you'll need to submit a formal request for an emergency board meeting. I can help you draft it. Through the ballroom doors, I could see my father still on stage, posing for photographs with Vivian. My mother circulated among guests, accepting congratulations as if she had earned them herself. If I did this, if I invoked the will, I would destroy every relationship I had left. My parents would never forgive me. Vivian would see it as betrayal. But if I stayed silent, I would accept their verdict. I would become exactly what they had always said I was, the failure, the slow one, the daughter who didn't matter. Miss Cross, Harrington's voice cut through my spiral. Your grandmother believed in you. She spent the last 3 years of her life preparing for this moment. The question is, do you believe in yourself? I looked at the will in my hands, at the elegant signature of the woman who had held my hand under Christmas tables and taught me to read contracts like architecture. I'll call you tomorrow. We're requesting that board meeting. Harrington allowed himself a small smile. She said you would. That night, back in my cramped Queens apartment, I finally opened the wooden box. My roommates were asleep. The only light came from the street lamp outside my window, casting orange stripes across my bed. I sat cross-legged, the mahogany box in my lap. The brass hinges creaked as I lifted the lid. Inside, a handwritten letter on Margaret's personal stationery, a faded document with a 1964 stamp, and a sleek USB drive clearly added much later. I reached for the letter first. My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, then David has done his job, and your father has done exactly what I feared he would. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I can protect you now. The enclosed document is the original partnership agreement from 1964, when I founded Cross Realty Group with 2 colleagues who have long since passed. Your father has never seen it. It establishes that the founder's shares carry permanent voting rights that cannot be diluted or transferred without board approval. The USB contains something else, something your father hoped I'd forgotten. In 2018, Harrison proposed a resolution to reduce my voting rights from 51% to 10%. His stated reason, I was too old to understand modern business. The real reason, he wanted control, and I was in his way. The board rejected his proposal by 2 votes. I was one of those votes. I never forgave him for what he tried to do, and I never forgave him for the way he treated you to justify it, as though diminishing you somehow proved I was unfit. Use this wisely, Lila, not for revenge, for justice. All my love, Grandma Margaret. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The files loaded. Emails, board minutes, a recorded conversation. Proof of everything. 72 hours. My grandmother had given me a weapon, a clock, and the truth. The only question left was whether I was finally ready to stop being the girl they had decided I was and become the woman she had always known I could be.